yeah.
file you can upload?
Let's
Yeah,
get
pretty easy.
started.
Cool.
So it takes like it takes about 10 minutes for like but when you upload videos you can only like
Alright,
the
guys,
max is like 10 minutes.
started.
So it's about 15 minutes maybe.
Alright, so
Oh, no,
this is
maybe
a
more.
scanning view
About 10
of
minutes.
the lip. So remember when we were looking at our epithelium, we looked at our stratified squamous epithelium, and we saw it when we were looking at the oral cavity. So we have our lining mucosa, and on the inner surface of the lip, and then on the outer surface you have your what's called your skin epithelium, your stratified squamous keratinoid epithelium. And from here we can see some hair follicles on the outer surface, or the outer part of the lip. Alright, so this is our scanning view. Alright, so we have our stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinoid, so this would be the inner part of the lip. And as we move around, the epithelium becomes parakeratinized. Alright, so remember that's when you have your layer of keratin, but the cells still have their nuclei. And then you have this side that's your stratified squamous keratinized epithelium. Alright, so let me see which one. Alright, so we're looking at the different layers of the skin. Alright, so our outer layer, our epithelium, that would be your epidermis. That's the outermost layer. So that's the layer that's facing the outside or facing the lumen. So on this side, that would be our dermis here, the stratified squamous epithelium. And then your dermis pretty much consists of the connective tissue that's sitting below your epithelium. Alright, so we have our epidermis, our dermis, and then the hypodermis usually is found in the lower regions. Pretty much what you have in your hypodermis is a lot of fat cells. You might have some loose connective tissue as well. And when we get to the skin, we also be looking for like our proscenium corpuscles in that layer of the skin. Alright, so we have our epidermis, our dermis, and our hypodermis. Alright, so for the layers, alright, when we get to the thick skin, we look at the layers. Alright, so this is relatively thin skin on this side because the layer of your stratified squamous epithelium, it's not very thick. And the layers are going to be a little bit harder to differentiate in the thin skin. So when we get to the thick skin, we look at the layers. Alright, so within the lip we can also see some glands here. Alright. Yeah, you have some hair follicles. Alright, so this is a hair follicle here. You can actually see it extending all the way outwards. We're not seeing too much of the root, but we can see the hair follicle here. Alright, so your hair follicle pretty much consists of a downward growth of your epidermis here. So you notice that the cells are pretty much going downwards, forming this hair follicle. Guys, if you're not listening, you can either leave or keep your voices down so that other people that are listening can hear what I'm saying. It's very distracting when I'm talking and I hear the talking in the background. Alright, so this portion of this portion is called the hair follicle. So that would be a downward growth of your epidermis. Then you notice that goes all the way down into the hair root. You'll find a better root to look at. Alright, then you have this inner portion, that's your hair shaft. So you have these cells similar to your epidermis, where you have the cells are moving upwards, and as they go upwards, they start to be filled with keratin, and they start to lose their nuclei. So you have a similar process occurring here where the hair shaft is forming. So that's the part of the hair that you're going to see actually sticking out from the outside of the skin or the outside of the scalp. So the hair follicle, the shaft is actually going to be this portion here that goes upwards and goes above the surface of the skin. And then this portion here would be your hair follicle. So if we look at that at... Alright, so if we look at that at height, alright, so these are your cells. So you notice that the epidermis, you have this downward look of the epidermis here. So this is going to be your hair follicle here, and that's going to extend into what's called the hair bulb. Alright, so notice on the inside here, that's where the cells are starting to become filled with keratin. They start to lose their nuclei. So you have this the structure being formed, that's called your hair shaft, and that's going to extend upwards and go above the surface of the skin.
Can you show us here the hair follicle and
okay, well this isn't really showing the hair bulb. I'll find a better one. Alright, so this portion here at the tip of the arrow, that's your hair shaft. And then this portion here, that's your hair follicle. So the follicle pretty much encloses the hair shaft. Alright, so if we look usually alongside the hair follicle, but not always, but in most of the slides you'll see these glands that are sitting alongside the hair follicle. These are your sebaceous glands. So if you look at that,
what cells contain in the sebaceous gland?
Alright, so in your sebaceous glands you have these cells. They're a little bit large. The nucleus usually located to the center of the cell, and you'll notice that they look like they have little droplets inside them. Alright, so that's the oil inside the sebaceous glands. So remember, with our similar to our adipose tissue, they're fat droplets, so they're not going to be, they're extracted during processing. So the cells kind of look like they have, you know, little droplets inside them. You see these little spaces. So those are your sebaceous glands here. Alright, sometimes you'll actually see them like right beside the hair follicle, and you'll see the duct extending into the follicle. Sometimes you just see them kind of.
It looks like the layer of the sebaceous gland is the hair follicle, like covered.
Because this one is actually right on top of the hair follicle, but you won't always see it that way. Alright, so notice these are kind of sitting here. So sometimes it's cut, you don't see the hair follicle, but you see the glands. And they're usually closer to the surface, closer to the epidermis. Alright, I don't know if we have...
So the layer is dermis.
Yeah, so all of this is your dermis. Alright, so this is an example of thick skin. Notice how thick the layer of keratin is above the stratified squamous epithelium. Alright, and notice again that there are no hair follicles in this one. So your thick skin, mostly you find that on the palms of your hand, the soles of your feet. So you're not going to find any hair follicles in there, but you're going to find a very thick layer of keratin, pretty much to protect the underlying cells here. So if we, let's go up to high power so we can see the layers.